Hello and welcome back to the podcast. It is me, Mark, and I am joined by the usual team, Craig and Richard. This is the first one of 2024, so we're going to have a little chat and catch up amongst ourselves. A couple of topics to talk about along the way, but before we get into all that, how are you this evening, Craig?
Yeah, good. Christmas feels like a long time ago now. I don't know about you guys, but it's definitely been back to it and probably busier than ever, which is a nice positive. But yeah, good family break, nice time, nothing exciting, just quiet at home with the wife and kids. So good rest, but glad to get back to work a bit. If I'm honest, 2 weeks is enough.
It is, isn't it? It's a similar story for myself. I was ready for a rest at work after 2 weeks of the kids. What about yourself, Richard?
Yeah, good. Great to speak to you guys. Happy New Year to you both.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
busy. It's always a busy time, isn't it? Christmas. There's always so much to do, and then you think to yourself, kind of end of November, you look at your calendar, you think, oh, I tell you what, Christmas will be here before you know it, and then boom, it's there. But I was really looking forward to this year at the end of last year, and now I've kind of got quite a few bits programmed into the calendar. I'm even more excited because quite a bit of stuff going on throughout the year. And yeah, all good, mate. Very
You
well.
had
Yourself?
quite the party tour towards the end of last year. You're underselling it because pretty much every day on social media there was a picture of you in someone's content here or there with a glass in your hand. So you certainly enjoyed
Right.
yourself.
Yeah,
I was
well,
tired and hungover watching them.
yeah, I'm a people person, and so it's just nice to spend a bit of time with people because you never know how much time you've got. So hopefully I've got many more years, but you don't know. And just nice to bump into people and talk about everything other than work sometimes. So yeah, life's for living, and you've got to get on and do a bit, in you. So yeah, all good, very good.
Definitely the case. Definitely the case. So
Yeah.
yeah, we was a similar up here, just quiet one with the family shut the business down for whatever it was, 10 days, I think. So we wasn't really doing anything work-wise, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Proper rest and shut down from it all. I think it's definitely needed sometimes. We
Yeah.
try and do it over Christmas. Not always possible. Stuff happens, doesn't it? But this year we got away with it. So we got a nice long break. And yeah, same as you guys, set for a good 2024. I think we're really busy as well. So it's good to hear you are, Craig. What sort of stuff have you got going on at the minute? Is it big commercial stuff, or you got some other bits and pieces on the go? Oh, we've lost Craig, I think. He's froze.
He hasn't paid his bill, I don't think.
Or his
No.
pizza's turned up. We'll jump down to you then, Richard. What you got?
He's back.
Oh,
He's back.
ah,
I think so.
I'm back. I'm back now. So
did you hear the
yeah.
question?
I heard you saying what have I got on this year, and then as I went to respond, it kind of
Yeah,
it
go
cut off
for
and
it.
I
Go
lost
for
my
it.
internet signal.
What's going on at the minute for you?
We've got loads to be fair. It's obviously we do a lot of predominantly office fit out, and then we do a bit of private medical going on as well. So we've got a couple of big private medical projects which are starting, which are going to be interesting. We don't do the actual medical design, but I always enjoy learning that side of stuff because when you start looking at medical UPSs and IPSs, it's a different avenue to start getting my own head into, which I enjoy just from a sort of geeky knowledge point of view. But we've got hopefully some really good success. So I'm designing at the minute the Cat B for the Cat A, which was our biggest ever project we'd done last year. We got sort of asked to do the Cat B, but instead of just doing the fit out this time, we're actually acting as the electrical kind of consultants on it and producing the whole design from start to finish and working with the client from that side. So that's nice. I like that consultancy side of life. It's a good angle that we'll probably take that design, do it all the way through, work with them on their needs, and then hopefully be the ones that do the install later on in the year. But we've got some other really big ones which looks like they're going to be positive, and one which we may be working together on, Mark. I think you were looking at solar on one of the jobs for us that we were doing. That's looking very positive and very likely to be starting, which we haven't spoke about yet.
I was going to
Um,
message you today about that. That's
so,
so weird.
so that's looking good. But yeah, I mean, like I went to a job today that sort of validating and setting up and looking at we're doing on site, and that's already booked for a start date in like 3 months' time. Like we're now sort of filling up for 3, 4 months in the future with sort of 50, 60 guys on site. So it's
Wow.
it's busy.
Yeah,
It's
just for the apprentices, Craig.
certainly fun.
What is Cat A and Cat B? Because there's people listening to this who maybe
I was just
wouldn't.
going to ask that. I was just going to ask that myself.
Got about can remember. So Cat A generally in an office fit out environment, you generally get three criteria as we work with. So Cat A is that we will install nothing other than your sort of lighting and your cleaner sockets around the building. So it's left empty, waiting for a tenant for when they come in. If we get a Cat A plus job, then that's generally lighting, cleaners, and then some tracks for power so that they're laid before any flooring goes down, so that that's then in a position for people to kind of move in after. And then Cat B is when it's kind of tenanted, and then we do the full office fit out, if you like. We look at all their feature lighting, we look at their individual requirements, we put in all their power and their bespoke elements. So at the minute, we left our job last year that we sort of handed over at Christmas. We left that as a Cat A finish, so it was linear lighting and all the open plan. We fitted out all the toilets, all the showers, done all that to how it should be. Panel heaters and stuff in the changing rooms, and then cleaner sockets dotted around. Now it's coming in and being tenanted. We're now looking at, we've got to start to look at their requirements for how they're going to use the floors and use the building and the office area. And it's painful at times because in some cases you're undoing some of the work you've just put in. Everything's a nice exposed containment, conduit and slab and everything. And you're going to go and take some of that out and some grid will go in and you'll put some flat panels in and usual office bits basically. But yeah, they kind of go through the stages. So a Cat A job is generally working for the landlord of the building, whereas a Cat B is generally somebody's leased that and now they're looking at how they design their own office for their own use in their scenario, basically.
Interesting. I mean, that's something that there'll be learners out there
Yeah.
who didn't know. And you certainly expanded on my understanding of that. So I learned something listening to you there as well, mate. That's really interesting.
So with that, sorry, Craig, with that, with your Cat A side of things then, do you allow provision in the sub-distribution and all that for future expansion, future loading for those different floors or whatever? Do you put all the sub-lanes?
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting, that is really
Yeah,
interesting.
so generally that's where you get the bits in your tender about leaving sort of 20-25%
Right.
power capacity for future supply. So
Okay.
this particular building it's got a 900 amp ACB LV panel coming into it.
Yeah.
Within that, when we done our Cat A works, what I did forget off there a minute ago was mechanical. We fitted the building out, so it's got all the mechanical on all the floors, it's got all the light and all the cleaners power. We have to make sure that we don't exceed leaving enough power for when it comes back to the work we're doing now, so that we can now install that as a fit out element without having to go and dig up the road. This is supplied from a HV transformer 60 meters away underground. If we get that wrong, then it's a costly build to dig all that back up and get that sort of in. So yeah, we put landlords and tenants boards on all the floors and all the risers. So now it's a case of just doing final circuits out of our main spine of our distribution that we installed, basically.
And when you say mechanical, are you talking about all the containment of part of the electrical side, or are you talking about something different there?
Well, and a mechanical package. So we worked with our mechanical contractors. Obviously, we work for main contractors, so they have like other contractors there. So in the job, fire alarms gone in, external condensers for mechanical power has gone in, so that there's aircon and stuff on the floors already. You've got door access and stuff, which we've allowed our power allowance and stuff into at the minute. And then you've got what we've done on the electrical side.
So like lift supplies, would you provide provision for that and all those other things that you might not necessarily think about?
Okay, yeah, you've got to design it out as best you can, and this becomes a battle between tendering as a QS, so quantity surveyor for anyone who's not sure. So taking the job when I receive the pack and looking at it and pricing to that to win the job. But then you've got all the on-site element that happens with our project managers and me involved in the design, where we need to now negotiate the fact that that job is either overpriced or underpriced based on the fact that the tender pack you've received may not have picked up all the things that you're talking about there. Or in this instance, we got a really nice scenario because we had to value engineer the project. So what that means for anybody is you get consultants who will overspec a job. They will say, use the best lighting in the world, the best this, the best that.
Yeah.
When it lands in front of the building owner or your tenant, and you go, well, here you go, that's £12 million, making numbers up, but for argument's sake.
Yeah.
They go, whoa, we never knew that. And now you've got to start working back. And there's a famous saying called equal or approved. So
Right.
now we've got to start working with our manufacturers that we use to
Yeah.
get the same finish, but for less money.
And less money. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So you obviously, as we all know, we can't affect the design element of the regs. The regs are the regs. You have to
That's right.
comply with the regulations. But
Yeah.
there are different ways to apply it. And there's one instance on this job where it was priced to start with that they wanted four 300 mil parallels pulled in with
Nice.
three 240ths, I think it was, to start with. But when we got there, there's three 240s in parallel with two 185s already in place. We managed to design
Honest.
that back using different reference methods,
Okay.
um, which meant that we could work off of achieving the 900 amps they needed in the tender,
Yeah.
but with leaving the existing cables in place. And that saved a huge amount of money
That
because that
yeah.
was no highways to shut the roads because there's only one road in and out and one led to a college. So it would have shut most of the college down.
Right.
No heavy generators to supply the fact that you've got no LV power, no heavy equipment pulling in four 300 mil cables underground, which would have been a mission for any man and his dog.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
it's how and this is why I love my job about design. It's how I spend my time taking that scenario and ending up seeing on the other side of when we've given it to the client, but within the budget that they were hoping for to be, will still not being less safe than what it
Yeah.
needs to be
But
for
ultimately,
regs.
still compliant and safe, as you say. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Really
stressful
interesting.
job. It's a stressful
Yeah.
job and a half, that one, Craig, because I have enough trouble with my little business designing
Yeah.
stuff and
Really
trying to
interesting.
get stuff to work with figures and numbers. I do a similar thing, but smaller scale with a PV proposal, for example. I'll go
Yeah.
for a all singing, all dancing, if you like, proposal and tell the customer this is what you could have,
Yes.
but if it's beyond budget, we can scale back and work towards something that you're more comfortable with from a
Yeah.
financial point of view. But that, what you've just described, sounds very, very difficult. So full respect to you.
Yeah.
I,
And
I,
the go on, Craig.
so I was only going to say, I think you're almost potentially in a worse position than me, Mark, and not in a horrible way. As in, like, I work with a very good team of like managers and people that have got experience in design. Whereas I imagine sometimes you're maybe on your own having to work this out and sort of
Even
come through
worse, I
this.
work with Matthew.
I've got a very trusted team in my office where the owner of the company who founded it, he's got a good design knowledge head on him. Me and him have done a 9-6. Our head PM has been in the game a long time. Like, he's seen most things on site in the areas that we work now. So between the three of us, it's a safe network to almost ask the stupid questions. And I would say on a daily basis, I still ask the stupid questions, and I would always encourage anyone to do that because
Yeah.
if you don't know, you just don't know.
No,
Like
that's right.
today we had a debate in the office about a operation and maintenance manual and whether a particular reg was something we should say in there, whether it's something we shouldn't. It's not yet mandatory, but it is a recommendation. Should it be on a certification? Should it be in our manuals? Like, you need good people around you to work that out so that we can just do the best that we can do as a company. I'm not saying we're the best at what is done. We're saying we always do the best that we can do as a company. And because I've got that support, it's quite fun. I like puzzles. I've got a very strange mind.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Richard? What have you got going on at ESF in
Oh,
the world of work? I imagine you've got your
nice.
a lot of pies at the minute.
How long have you got? Blooming it. Well,
Go
I
for it.
mean,
Let's say some stuff.
yeah, I mean, Dave can't make it tonight. He's got other bits and pieces. I think he's at judo tonight or
Down
whatever
the
he's
pub.
doing. So he's a busy man. But we got quite a lot
Heard
of
he was
stuff
getting a
going on.
new car.
Yeah. We did a nice little podcast yesterday with Steve Humphries from Napit. They'd launched a new
They have. What's it called? I've forgotten now. But
What's current? Very clever.
that's it. Yes, I'm going on there myself soon as well. That's
Yeah, it's
another
good.
one for people to check out. I'll link it in the description if anyone's
Yeah.
interested.
So that was
It just mean it didn't get invited.
it's
I know
it's
you
all
have been
coming.
invited. You've been invited. I just haven't passed that on yet.
It's all coming. He's a good guy, Steve. I've known Steve for many years, and we've crossed paths through our teaching and learning days way back in the day. So it's lovely to see him back in a similar position to myself, where hopefully we can all have a positive impact moving forward. So yeah, we did that. That was really good. We're on the wire, which is the NIC-EIC's webinar series on the 17th of Jan. Myself and Dave again talking about Best Practice Guide 10, which is our latest best practice guide that's been put together by industry for industry. People forget that it's not our view, mine and Dave's, or indeed electrical safety first. It's everyone's view. That includes landlords, the government, and all the other major players, IET, and the awarding organisations, City and Guilds, EAL, NAPIT, Search, Select. Everybody kind of joins together to produce these industry guidance documents that are free to download. And Dave will talk to you about the process of putting them together, because it doesn't happen overnight. It takes weeks of sending.
But it's hell on earth sometimes getting everyone on that side of things to agree.
Absolutely. But, you know, we're the only organisation that has a platform to enable conversations to take place and produce guidance like so. So we've got that coming up on the 17th. We are going to be exhibiting at LX at Alexandra Palace. So I'm really excited about that. End of Feb. So 29th of Feb, because it's a leap year, and 1st of March. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we are doing a couple of technical seminars within the seminar space alongside the other organisations in there. And you'll be pleased to know something that's close to our hearts, all of us. It'll be reminding people of safe isolation and safe working practices. And I've got my big bag of excuses to take with me. So we're going to be handing those out because, you know, anyway, that's another story. But really pleased to be getting back in that space.
Have you got your own stand there as well? Or are you
got our own stand there, mate? Yeah, we've got our own stand.
I might try and get down.
Please do, please do. And we'll be talking about the best practice guides and the RAG and, you know, other bits and pieces that we do on the installation side. Of course, the product side of the charity do loads of good work relating to, you know, dodgy products that you can buy from online marketplaces. Did that fantastic battery breakdown where they did loads of experiments on, you know, lithium-ion batteries going into, you know, thermal runaway and, you know, fantastic stuff, fantastic work they do. We're popping up to see our good friend Chris Horn from, I forget how you pronounce it, but Widnes College, wherever it is, you know, our little pal.
He gets everywhere, does Chris?
Riverside one, yeah.
Yeah,
I see him on everybody's social media posts. What a legend that man is. I've met him a couple of times.
So we're going up there with our good friend Darren Cranis from the ECA, and I'm keen to do more college visits this year if we can, and join alongside our good friend Gas from EFIX as well, just to try and let people know who we are as a charity and an organisation, and our stuff's free to download, and anything else we can do to try and to make things better, you know, in industry and work collaboratively with people as opposed to fighting people, because I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter. But there you go. We've also got our installation event at the IT headquarters, which is Savoy Place. That's on the 23rd of April. It's a half-day, free-to-attend event. Obviously, you guys will be invited. This is a free event to attend, and it's just really to try and get a feel and see if there's a need for it. We always do our product safety conference every year, but we've thought that maybe we need to do an installation event, and there's 3 key areas that we're going to be talking about. So that's going to be really good. Looking forward to that. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with that. Again,
that sounds interesting. So when's that?
Really
End
good.
of March?
It's 23rd of April, that one is. And
Okay.
that's at Savoy Place, which is the IT headquarters.
Yeah.
There's 3 key areas that we're going to be looking at. One around upskilling and what we need to do with the future workforce, what we're currently doing, you know, what needs to change. And we've got 4 or 5 on the panel, Ruth Devine being one of them, Kevin Sparrow, Gary Hayes, etc.
Well done to
She
Ruth.
got
I
her
think she was
MBE,
in the
didn't she?
honours
Yeah.
list, wasn't she?
That's
That's
And
incredible.
so she should.
She got an MBE.
And so
Yeah.
she should, because there's some great work being done in that space. We've got another area talking about EICRs and what needs to be done to improve the general quality of them, etc. And we know there's issues around EICRs, and all the rest of it. And then we've got one final one, which is like a poster presentation talking about challenges for the future in terms of everything that's going on in terms of solar PV and battery storage and what challenges they bring. Good old Darren Staniforth is going to be there talking about the areas that are going to be maybe a problem for distributors, and wholesalers, etc. So it's going to be really, really good, really interesting. Only a half-day event, but quite a good fireside chat and all sorts going on. So that's going to be a run around. I'll send some invites out. It'd be lovely to have you there. And I'm hoping that this will kind of lead us into a full-day event next year then, where we'll have other speakers and things like that. I think it's got to be a good thing again. It's going to bring us out of the dark and into the light. Sounds like a Star Wars quote, but it'll give us more of a platform to talk about the things that are going on, because we're independent, obviously, and then to invite some of the key players within industry, whether it be a training organisation or a contractor that's out there on site, or a designer like yourself, Craig, or a lecturer that's out there struggling in a college, or some learners as well. We've got some of the winners from the Net Skills event are on one of the panels, which I think is important. So it's going to be a really good event, and we've tried to get a mixture in terms of male and female on the panels as well. So I think that's important. So looking forward to that. We've obviously got our ongoing working groups that people aren't aware of, and we've got the RAG, which is the Wine Regulations Advisory Group. So this exists on our website for questions that can't be answered generally because of the way that the terminology is within the regs. So it's not actually clear. So the regs might say you've got to have a type A RCD now, blah, blah, blah. But is it actually required? So if you're adding an additional socket outlet and you've got a type A CRCD, have you got to change it? So, and there's two categories within that, one for new installations and one for existing. Loads of stuff on coding and observations. And again, all the key players are involved with that, and that happens once a month generally. And the next one is on the 26th of Jan. So there'll be somebody from ECA, somebody from the NRC, somebody from NAPIT, somebody from the HSC, somebody from EAL, City and Guilds, etc., etc. And some of the stuff that comes up is quite interesting, and I like it because to me it's like all the big brains of the industry coming together to give a sensible answer to something. Sometimes it's not clear, it's not black and white. A good example was the ECA proposed a question relating to the OZEV report done on EV installations, where you had a low-level SWA cable supplying an EV charger, but they give a code 2 classification code to it because it wasn't fixed with non-combustible fixings. It was just normal cleats. But is it ever going to be a risk to life? Is it ever going to impede ingress or egress of firefighters' activities at low level? No. So why are you giving it a code 2? So we try to give practical advice, and where we can reference the regs. But again, these questions, and Dave's the chair for RAG, they might go on for weeks because everyone has to agree. And if the full stop's not there or the correct terminology is not quite right, it goes forwards and backwards. And only when we've all agreed do they get published on the website. So it's a real good tool. If you're not quite sure about something, is it on the RAG? And it's all free to download. So that's pretty good. We've got our EISF working group next week, which is the Electrical Installation Safety Forum. And I'm the secretary of that. And again, been a few issues that have come up, one of which you guys will both be familiar with, where we might have an EV charger that states that it's got an RCD built in it, but actually it hasn't, or it hasn't to BSEN 61008. So do we need one upstream? Don't we need, so these types of things come about. Diverted neutral currents, that's a bit of an issue at the moment. So, maximum demand and diversity, we know that, the general information is quite archaic and out of date-ish. So I know that the IT are working on some new guidance with that. So there's information around that. DNOs, we know that they need to be informed of significant load before, generally, maybe with EV chargers and heat pumps. But what about if we've got no gas boiler and we're installing an electric boiler, or indeed a load of electric dual tariff heaters? Do we need to inform them then? Because you might be adding 30, 40 amps. Currently, there is no requirement. But again, the ENA are one of the members that are part of this group. So all these little working groups that go on in the background, we facilitate that. So what we do is facilitate conversation, and that's really good to be involved with that stuff.
Craig's itching to jump in, Richard. Go on, Craig.
Yeah, go on, mate. Sorry.
Can I ask a rag question to address on this podcast then?
Yes, certainly.
Why?
And that's what it's for.
Why do consultants want metal fixings when cables sat on metal cable tray and claim it's for fire barriers?
Yeah.
Why?
I had a
cable tray is surely stronger than a cable tie. Just maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? It's my biggest bugbear.
We've also got a lot of inquiries that generally come through to me because I kind of handle most of them. And it can be generally it's from it's ordinary people, members of the public that have had an EICR done, and it's not clear on that as to what they need to do next. Is it safe? Is it not safe? They're not really sure of what's been done and what hasn't been done, and they've had some codes that they're not quite sure. Are they really dangerous? Are they not? So we deal with a lot of inquiries, and we had one recently, and it was from a landlord that owned a number of high-rise blocks of flats in London, and the contractor that was installing the containment had used plastic wall plugs, and the consultant wanted to confirm whether or not that was compliant with 7671. That's an example of. And
that's
there's
a whole
nothing to
world
say.
of engineering judgment beyond an electrician's day shift, isn't it, when we get to that level?
It is, but there is a question within the RAG that's already been answered, and RAG, as all the organisations that we've mentioned, have all collectively come together to provide a sensible answer to it. And the answer is, as long as those plastic wall plugs have been installed as per their design with the manufacturer's recommendations, and you've got the right size screw and everything else, there is no problem.
And that comes back to, because if you look at a lot of manufacturers' data, because we've got a job going on at the minute about fixings of a similar trend, not exactly what you're saying, is even though they're plastic, the fire rating of these devices won't go off until they're like, say, 750 or whatever,
degrees,
until they're properly burning for a set amount of time in a fire. They are still fire rated, they're just not fire rated to the same. So that, it's a great point of what are you specifying and why. It's not a case of just going back and going, well, but it's always, red plug, 5 plug, always this, always that. Well, is it? Why? What's the point that you're doing that? And the smallest things you don't think about are the things that end up catching you out, I think, sometimes, aren't they?
And of course, if we could, and if you had the budget and you had the money there, and you could install metal screws made by whoever did those Wall Dog screws, or Hilti or somebody else, and the money was there, then of course 7671 is a minimum standard, but is it required? And that might be the difference between winning the job and not winning the job. If you could go all out and make it the best it could be, then you would do that as standard, wouldn't you? But there's nothing in the regs that says you can't use plastic wall plugs, but the way you interpret the regs, you might feel like you can't, and that's fair enough. So, yeah, I find it really interesting, and it's a really good resource that nobody knows it's there.
I'll drop a link again in the description. I think we've mentioned it. You've mentioned it certainly in the past episodes of this. So we'll keep pushing that, and I'll pop a link on the Apprentice One-to-One website when I get to eventually updating that as well, because it is a really useful feature. It's certainly something that experienced electricians can make use of, never mind any learners and trainees. So.
Yeah, it's good, and it obviously references the regs or other statutory regulations wherever required. So you've got something to. So if somebody asks you a question, it actually has where that information's come from. And again, it's been agreed by all of the organisations that form part of that group.
Like a
Not just
super brain technical helpline, isn't
I
it,
love
really?
it. I love it. I do love that, and I'm hoping that again, if possible in the future, that can be opened out now and again to contractors, just as an observer role, can just observe and get an insight as to how these answers to these questions are formulated, so you've got a better understanding, and then and contribute as well, because no one can contribute better than the contractors, the sparks that are out there doing the work. Do you know what I mean? You know what problems do you come across? How do you interpret 7671 and how do you apply it? Similarly to Mark, that's designing, before it's even installed. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot more conversations that need to take place, but it needs to have the right people engaging with it as well.
So you're really getting out there, doing loads of stuff and bringing people together. I think there is like I'd say a positive vibe, but there's a real effort, I think, through industry for people to try and work together. I know that near Pit, the NIC, for example, obviously they're competitors, but they are working together. There's the ECA as well, and lots of people are all moving in the same direction. And you guys at ESF central to that. You're like the gatekeepers to it all, I guess.
Yeah, we're kind of we set the platform up for people to come and have a conversation, and that nobody else does that. We facilitate that, and that's important. And of course, everything we do is free. You can download it as many times as you like. It's free guidance. So, and I'm glad that we're attending the LX, as well. And I know we've got some stuff planned supporting Apprentice 1-to-1, and we're hoping to try and bridge the gap to all these deaths that are still occurring, and there's no reasonable excuse why people are still getting injured or fatalities because of not carrying out safe working practices and safe isolation and stuff like that. It's just, in this day and age, it doesn't make sense. So anything we can help and support, me personally, but equally, electrical safety first, we want to be 100% with you guys on that.
It's one of the big things of industry at the minute, the safety. It's not just safe isolation. I feel it quite a lot at the minute because we're working at height now nearly every day. It's something we do now and then. In the past, you maybe have some powered access platform or some scaffold towers going up a summer once every month-ish. And now pretty much every day we're up 2 stories on some scaffold, working on a roof. It can be windy, slippy. Even when it's not raining, there's all the other issues as well around welfare facilities and the safe isolation of AC and DC systems. We are really trying in our small little business to get those things right. But I can only imagine for a big company like Craig's, the one you're working, for example, having supervision and oversight of every single person in your organization to ensure that they follow all of those steps all the time is a big ask, isn't it? So there's a lot of self-responsibility, I think, on employees and trying to really get that education into them, facilitating the equipment they need, and then trying to really explain why it's important they use it. So that's one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a massive task, as you're saying. It's about how you set it up. And as I said at the start with the design stuff, I'm not saying that what we do is the best there is, but we are trying the best we can. So, we are accredited by all the right people. We are inspected by all the right people. We believe, whether you agree with us or not, our company procedure is you're a spark if you're gold carded. Because for a lot of the sites that we are on, you have to have a gold card to be able to gain access to the site. Now, whether you agree with that or not doesn't really matter, to be honest, because you can't get on and do the work if you haven't got the ticket that gets you on the site, right? So for us, on every job, we have a foreman who will be an experienced gold carded spark, who will usually be supported by an apprentice or an experienced lad, depending on how complicated the job is. And then we have a project, we've got a team of project managers, and they'll be managing a few projects each, where they are visiting each of the sites every week, making sure they are checking in. And then it's all the daily support, isn't it? If there's a design question, my phone will go, can I just check this? Can I just check that? Or there's, the PMs getting stuff, like the contractors are working on weekly site meetings with the project managers. They've got their own site supervisors on site managing the site health and safety of all trades. It's a whole complex network of mesh, isn't it? That everybody, as you say, has to be responsible, because I don't know about you guys, but I go to work to feed my family. So And I've had this argument on site in the past where someone went, "Oh, what? You're the only person I've ever seen put a padlock on that." And I go, "Well, I'll maybe be the only person you see going home to the kids then."
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you don't think I'm cool because I'm going to padlock off what I'm working on. I'm really not fussed. Like, what I'm fussed about is that I go home and see my wife and kids at the end of the day. And health and safety, I know it's that thing that everybody just goes, "Oh, well, it never used to be like that, or it'll never happen, or it'll never." It's there because it's happened, right? It's not there because somebody decided to make fun. So
Yeah.
you have to take your own health and safety responsibly. And people get pumped off sites. And if you get pumped off site because you couldn't be bothered to follow the health and safety, then it's not going to bode well with your employer when you go back, when they get that report that you've been sacked or you've been kicked off site and now they've got nowhere for you to go and work the next day.
And sometimes I think we make the worst decisions when we're rushing. So you'll be at the top of some ladders, or you'll be at the other end of a
Yeah.
warehouse, and you're missing your goggles or your gloves that are at the other end, and it'll take you all of 2 minutes to go and get them. But that 2 minutes while you're in that one place doing a bit of work feels like forever. And I
Yeah.
often think that's when you make the worst choices. So just step back from that and think about the task and what you need to do it safely, because that's way more important than saving 2 minutes at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I try to do in my daily work activities, and just to go back into a bit of what I've been up to close up the chat between all.
I was going to say nobody's asked to what.
No,
I've seen
well,
I
I did have a few
lots of
bits to talk
posts
about.
on on LinkedIn and Instagram, mate. It looks like you've had a real busy period before Christmas and equally after, with lots of PV and battery storage and island mode, and it's been really interesting. It's in your
I've been trying to share short videos on most of the socials to show what's actually involved. Because I've had quite a few questions from lots of installers who aren't currently in PV. They're thinking about doing it. The apprentices obviously as well, and then from my own point of view, to get some tips from people who are far more experienced at this than I am. So I thought we'd do a little series of videos over a few weeks here and there and really delve into what we do day to day. So I have been sharing lots of that. If anyone wants to see it, it's on my LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram.
Brilliant.
And there will be YouTube videos added to the solar playlist to kind of cover that off. But yeah, it's just breaking down how you actually mount panels onto a roof. Even some consumers are interested in it. How do these things actually get held down? The basics of leveling them off, specifying a system, doing the G99s. Really tried to go into it. And it's interesting. I found all of that interesting, and they want a great deal of content on there. It's more stories that people share on Instagram. That's where a lot of the installers are, and those stories disappear after a time. So I thought I'd do it, chuck it out there, and the reception to it's been really good. So that's.
But I think that's essential. Like, having done the EAL qualification for that just prior to Christmas, of course, the qualification just kind of dusts along the surface of it all. It doesn't really dig deep into G99 and roof constructions and doing the roof type work, and reminds you about the working at height regulations, but it doesn't go into any, there's so many considerations that you need to consider, of course, and apply. It's massive. The things you need to know is crazy, and that's just if you're working for yourself. But if you're responsible for employees as well, and of course the homeowner or whatever it is, you've got to be aware of their safety. They need to be able to still use their house and everything else. There's so many things you need to consider, and then you get into the regs where you're delving into parts 1 to 6, and then you're into 7, and then you're back into 551 because people don't realize it's a generator, and then you got the manufacturer's information. You got to try and sort that out, and then you've got to think about the customer, and there's so many things that you need to, it's really interesting, and I think the more you do on that, the better, and try and explain it all. And even when you're talking about how it gets mounted on a roof, never learned any of that during the course. You didn't. So this is what you've got. This is what you need. But you need further information, and you need to understand how it all gets mounted in and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know whether I'd sub it out to a roofer to do it, but then can you get a roofer to do it, or are you better doing it yourself? I don't know. I mean, I'd like to do it all myself, but I don't know.
But I think it's also more the simpler things that you showed on there. Having been, someone who's not done the solar course and someone who's not involved in solar in any way, shape, or form. I watched one of your posts or videos, I can't remember which, the other day, and it was like you were cleaning down the roof tiles before you put panels on. And you just think, do you know what? It's that extra level of just that little bit of thought that makes a customer go, that's a
Detail,
professional job instead of just a bodge. Because you can
lashing it.
go, oh, it's going to be hidden. No one will see it. It'll be hidden. It doesn't matter. But
Details,
the
mate.
thing,
Details.
and that's what I would say to all apprentices listening to us at any point is 90% of what we do, you will never see. It doesn't mean it should be done badly.
True.
Absolutely.
True.
Yeah, I mean that roof was especially bad. That's an active install. We've just finished it today. But yeah, that's been going on through the course of the week. So I was trying to share it all raw and ready, so I couldn't edit bits out. Because sometimes when you sit with your content, you're like, I'll take that out because it doesn't look the best. The wind was really bad. I thought, no, we'll just chuck everything out so people can have a see it.
Yeah, but that's real life. That's real life, isn't it? You know, these are the challenges that you come across, and this is real life. We're not photoshopping it or adding filters and all the rest of it, which is generally what happens in life these days. You know, this is a real day in a Sparky's working life. You know, and that's important. I think that's important.
It's been a challenge, that one, because we've had the garage roof we're working on is about, I think, 30 or so meters down the drive, and they had an existing 6mm 4-core cable, so we've been able to parallel those conductors. The bolt drop calcs with the 1% we managed to get to play out, save digging up their garden, all the costs in and around all that. So there was that aspect from the start, but then it's how do we power the garage when we've taken its feed away? So using a hybrid inverter to do that down there, but with no DC coupled batteries. Are we allowed to do that with the all-in-one? Getting the DNO to play ball with all of that and understand what we were saying. I see really clearly some of the voltage variations now. Now we've got dozens of these PV systems installed. I can view locally what the voltage is like day to day, and it's quite surprising where in some parts of East Yorkshire it can be down at 225 volts. And at my own home, where we're quite close to the substation, it's pushing that 253 most of the time.
Wow.
So it's interesting to see that variation, the struggle that DNOs have when all that solar switches on and those voltages rise and fall with that.
Yeah.
It's windy. You know, they really do have a big job on their hands, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe batteries at a domestic consumer level will be the thing to smooth all that out. I'm not so sure. I don't really understand how they're going to quite make all that work.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
They are starting to reject G99s. We did one for 2 properties on the same street, and then one of the neighbours wanted them a similar system, and they rejected it because of the existing generation in the local area already to that property. So we're going to start seeing more of that, and obviously consumers want access to this stuff, so something needs to be done.
And I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but can they adjust the tappings on them remotely, or does it have to be done manually? I'm not quite sure on that side. It might be a question for Darren from ECA. He's quite clued up with generation and stuff, but I was under the impression that it has to be done manually. Somebody has to go. And,
I think there's levers on the side of them, isn't there? 3 positions or something, and they have to be
out. Sure, but
you thought it needed an engineer present, but
yeah, they don't. You know, they can't click a button now on the laptop and adjust that because the voltages are too high, etc. So as you say, it's a massive challenge to them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I like Craig's doing well with his business. We're going really well, but I have seen some worrying signs more widely that there seems to be more apprentices getting in touch again with Apprentice One-to-One, that they've lost their jobs recently, and I've not been doing as much of the job link-ups because industry, and in particular TESP and Net, are working on stuff that's going to do a lot of what I did, but on a much bigger, broader scale, working with people like the ECA and NIC and NAPIT and such. But it's not quite managed to get over the line. So I'm doing a bit more of the job link-ups again. So I'm seeing those inquiries. So I'm starting to wonder if things are getting bad out there more widely. I don't know if either of you have had a view of that. Craig's nodding his head.
Yeah, I mean, from my point, like, you know, we're touch wood, we're lucky we are not, but we are definitely seeing, and not just apprentices, unfortunately, we are seeing Sparkies now as well, starting to post up and looking around, and I'm not sure what part of the market it is, because, you know, we are, as I say, we are very busy, and that's not a brag, it's just, we are, like, you know, we work with the same 5 or 6 main contractors, and we just get all of our business as a repeat business from what we do. We don't advertise and market and all that sort of stuff. It's a position that's been built up over years, but unfortunately we are now seeing more adverts, more Sparkies, more people popping up, more people looking for jobs. So I think there is definitely a decline in parts of the industry. I don't know what parts, because I'm not, you know, we're a very small niche, but there is something changing in that market. I think there is an element of people are getting a little bit quieter, or maybe it's more one-man bands, I'm not sure. But if you're not quite But you've had another big construction company go bust this week again, haven't we? Was it Stuart Milne has just gone bust as well? They
Yeah,
were
yeah,
another
had that, yeah.
multi-million pound company that's so the new build domestic sector seems to be popping because all these big domestic companies are going bang. Like you literally wake up most days and there's another one going bang. And, you know, thoughts to all those people because I never like to think of anybody out of work or any situation, but something's changing and I'm not sure if it is in the new build market, maybe. I'm not in that
I think you're
market, so I
right.
can't overly comment, but that's where I seem to be seeing the bigger companies going bang, and I'm not sure why.
I think you're right. And HS2's probably got part to play in it as well. Obviously, that big infrastructure project getting scaled down. There's a lot of construction firms who are going to be tying their future prospects to that. And that's now obviously
Yeah.
been massively changed and adjusted, and they'll be trying to pick up other bits and pieces. It's difficult, isn't it? But
It
fingers
is, yeah.
crossed it
Yeah,
rights
and
itself.
it's even more important then for, apprentices, learners that are looking for an apprenticeship, whether it be, school leavers, adult learners, whatever, to make themselves stand out. Because if you're looking for an apprenticeship, and you do see a lot of posts, on social media on Jimmy Bean, I've just left school, I've done this, I'm really interested in this. If you need any extra work or any extra hands on the weekend, whatever, let me know. But what are you actually doing to make yourself stand out compared to the rest? And we know that apprenticeships are difficult to get, and at the moment they're probably even more difficult. So it may be something we could look at in a future podcast about some of the tips and tricks. Probably already done it, but it might be good to go back and revisit that. About leave yourself a little picture of yourself and a little CV and what you're interested in, a few pictures of stuff you've done on the drinks machine and the wholesalers or something. What are you doing? Because it ain't going to come to you. Sometimes you've got to go out there and promote yourself and make yourself employable, if that makes sense. So if it's more difficult than what it normally is, which it is pretty difficult, then what are you doing yourselves to promote yourself? You know what I mean? So and there's loads of things at the moment, isn't there? You can go and do a load of CPD and EFIX. You can listen to this podcast and other podcasts and stuff like that, and show a general interest for that. Potential employer. I'm going to take him instead of him, or her instead of him, or her instead of her. Whatever. You need to promote yourselves, but you need to show that you're committed and you're interested and you want to get into this fabulous industry that we're all involved in. And Craig proves that at the end of the day, Craig's an electrician. He was and he still is. But look at the level where Craig is in terms of a conversation about design, and that needs another podcast because I was really getting into that in terms of different categories and what's involved. It's amazing. Or you've got Mark as well that's running his own business, and and myself that's gone through the same journey, but I'm in a different position. It can open that many doors, so it's a great industry to get into. But what are you going to do to get yourself there? And it is difficult, so you need to do something different to what somebody else is doing, don't you?
You've got to not look short-sighted. I know when you're 16, it's cool to have the trainers, to have the weekend, to have the friends, to have the drink. I know, so no one drank at 16, did we, boys? Um,
Yeah.
but you've got to look longer term. We're all sat here because it's given us a good life, because we enjoy it, because it's an industry that we all love. Otherwise, we wouldn't all be giving up our evenings for free to come and talk about it. So if we're all still doing it for free, what, 20, 25, 30 years in, 40 years, wherever we are
Yeah.
amongst us in that sort of scope, then if you're an apprentice and you're not getting any work, you might have to just go and help someone just so you get your hands on site, just so you get that bit of time. Because I had a call today off of a good friend of all of ours who runs another podcast who likes to claim he's, number one, but we'll let them have that. Asking about if there was spaces for any apprentices where I am, and I was trying really hard, and he's doing all the right things, and unfortunately, it's still not quite coming off for this person. And unfortunately, they're going to have to maybe just go, can I just come and get some work experience? At least when I was at school, that's how I enjoyed it. There was always that thing when you had to go and do some work experience and give up like a week of your time and go and
Yeah.
your hands dirty.
Yeah.
You've got to look at that longer game of, well, if I give up every Saturday when I'm I'm 16, I know it means I'm getting out of bed, but then I might have a job for life that gives me all these other great opportunities. And yeah, I don't envy any 16-year-olds now because it's a tough market out there trying to decide what you want to do.
It really is. And another resource that you can really stand out doing is all the manufacturer training that's there. So it's all
Yeah.
online generally. I'm thinking of Solar Edge and Give Energy, My Energy. They have installer portals where anyone can go on and download the knowledge-based stuff. The renewable sector is one of those that is growing. There's lots of requirements for electricians and trainees in that space. So if you've got a bit of a head start of understanding how all this stuff goes together, how it works, even if it's not electrically, understanding how you program all this stuff, set it all up, that's a job in itself now with some of the systems we're putting together. So you can do all of that in your own time from the comfort of your own home and give yourself a little head start on what others are up to. So a last little tip there from me.
And
It's true.
the biggest trick, sorry, I start all of our apprentices the same way when they come in, as I give them a number of different types of cable and I make them sit at a desk with a set of cutters and learn how to strip the cable. Because even if you can go to site and go around and strip all the back boxes ready for the electrician to come around and terminate them,
Job, mate.
you're
Yeah, it's a
giving
job.
something back. If
Yeah.
you can
Basically
gland
a
that
hero
armored
if you
for
can
them,
do
if
that.
you can, so even if all you're doing is on a Thursday night sitting at home with some offcuts of cable from a local wholesaler and just practicing how to strip it without cutting the cords, even that in itself is going to make you that bit different,
More
isn't it? Because
employable
we've all
potentially.
done it.
Yeah,
We've all done
absolutely.
it, except me. I've never stripped a cable and cut a cord that you've had to rewire ever. But
And that might be something we can do a bit similar to what our good friend Eddie Clements did with the Lone Rangers and the conduit. Maybe we could acquire a few set lengths of different types of cables from our good friends at Doncaster Cables or something, and have those available at some wholesalers or somewhere where people could pick something up and have a little go. And maybe that's something we could look at as well this year. I don't know, but there's lots
Yeah,
of things we could
good
do.
idea.
But people have got to help themselves as well. And if it takes a bit of, turning up on site for free, but you are gaining someone's knowledge, and that is, you can't put a price on it. There's no
No.
price on that.
No, I mean, there's lots of help out there in industry, and lots of it does come back to self-responsibility as well. We've mentioned that a few times on this podcast, really making those efforts yourself. Before we end this one, I want to mention a couple of things. One is the IET standard. Before we get to that, very quickly, if you are a trainee or an apprentice who's watching this, there is a Proteus a day, a show that they're putting together on the 6th of February. It's in Telford. It's a look around their factory at Tamlex, which shows how steel containment gets made. So it comes in on a roll, it's run it through a load of machinery, turn it into tray, basket, conduit, all that good stuff. You can go and have a look at that, and then go to Proteus Industrial, where they will show you some massive switch gear, how they put all of that together, from cutting it out with a laser cutter to powder coating it with paint. And there's going to be a panel of people attending where you can ask questions. There's going to be 10 attendees. You'll be apprentices, trainees, and there'll be me and a few others there to answer some of those questions. Perhaps some people who are sat in front of the camera as well tonight. I'm not sure. And, if you want
Dave will be there, and Dave is very keen to go because he's installed Proteus from old. And I said, look, you need to go and have a look, because when you arranged it last time, what a great day that was, and it really gave me an insight into what goes behind everything that they do as well. So I thought it was a fantastic day out. So I'd encourage anyone to get on board and register with Mark and get there, because it'd be really good day.
It is. And if you want to DM over on any of the social media platforms, drop a comment in alongside this video. However you want to do it, I'll keep my eye out for those. It's limited to 10 spaces. It is kind of first come, first served. It has been out on Instagram today. There's a few people already been getting in touch. So you need to move quickly if you're listening to this, is all I can really say. And yeah, IET standard. So they've got a standard. It's been out. We were going to talk about this on a few podcasts ago, and I think we got sidetracked by the brilliant the Murdex soft one with Spencer. That was brilliant.
That was great. I did enjoy that. I'm looking forward to the
just
second
kind of
part.
got sidelined a little bit, but they have produced the standard. They do all the guidance documents, stuff we're all familiar with. I think standards is a new one from the IET, isn't it? It's standard 1, I think they're calling it.
01, yeah.
And it's to do with pen fault protection. Is that the rough outline?
Yeah, so what they've tried to do is standardize the unicorn device. So it's been in collaboration with a lot of the manufacturers and indeed some of the other industry bodies that we've already spoke about this evening, including ourselves, that agree to kind of support something there to give the everyday person some guidance for that, because currently there isn't a standard for these devices, and the requirements currently of 722 require us to include a declaration of conformity from the manufacturer, because I certainly don't carry around, and I'm sure you haven't got one, Mark, an open device unicorn tester, because nobody makes one. And I don't fancy going to the cutout and open a cutout, which we're not legally allowed to do, and cutting the protective earth neutral conductor to see if this device will actually work when it should work. So, there needs to be some guidance on a particular standard, and I'm not sure personally whether this standard is for manufacturers to follow, and whether, if you don't follow that standard, does it mean it's non-compliant? I don't really know. I haven't personally had a chance to look at the standard as yet, but somebody needs to do something to give us some advice and guidance on it. So I haven't looked at it myself yet, so I can't comment as such, but I understand the reasoning for it, if that makes sense.
Just that interesting angle, isn't it? The whole angle of the way this is coming about, and it's the fact that like your open technology, and there's different manufacturers out there doing this now, and Proteus are putting some of it inside their boards for their EV charging boards of a specific brand and everything, which is, to me, if it's accurate, it's bang on. And I've got a test rig at my place that Proteus very nicely sent me, which I haven't wired yet, but that has a switch to be able to test some of this. So I'm going to have a really good play with that when I get a chance to do that. But again, they're going on a different angle, because if you look at 7671, then they're not necessarily allowed to use this as a means of protection from electric shock, but they're going on a different indent of the regs, on a different avenue to say, well, it's not about the electric shock, it's about, can't remember the exact terminology, but it's about cutting off a different part of the standard rather than the electric shock element, because it's not a protective device, if you like, which is why we can't then use it. So I think there's a whole nother minefield about this evolving technology and how that's going to embed itself in, and how we need to be aware of these other standards and manufacturers' equipment. And if that's the IET that's going to give us that knowledge, then fair play, because to me, we need somebody to flagship this process. Otherwise, we're going to be back to the start of Part P when that all came back about, and it'll be another puzzle of a mess. We need someone to grab it by the horns and say, this is at least a version of why we've done this. Do you agree or do you not? And then everyone can make their own minds up from there, I guess. And then it's that engineering judgment, as you say, about what you can and can't apply to your install and to your regs based off of the choices that you make from that situation.
I think it's a good thing as well, Craig. I mean, these standards, when you see a product standard, for example, or a British standard, I think they take years and years and years to put together and bring out. And the way technology is moving in the EV market and in PV as well, it's really fast. Manufacturers are making huge changes almost on a weekly basis sometimes. So for those kind of organizations and mechanisms to keep up must be quite difficult. If the IET can maybe react a little bit more quickly and get these standards out more quickly to support installers, manufacturers, I see that as a pretty good thing, to be honest. I know there was some voices raised around, well, it should be BSI who were doing stuff like this, and those kind of conversations. But credit to them. I support it. I think it's a good idea. I'm not sure if it's still in a draft for public comment phase or if it's
It's still on DPC, and it will be a code of practice, so it's not statutory. A bit like 7671, but it's some guidance, isn't it? And I think, as you quite rightly say, you've got to think of the everyday designer, installer, electrician that's trying to design and be compliant with 7671. But then which door do you open to be compliant with it? Which manufacturers, and the manufacturers need to do more in terms of their technical documentation and information to make it clear as to if there's a unicorn device or a open device that's built into their equipment, as to which indent to 722, 411, 41. If I remembered that right, I'll be proud of myself. It complies with, because we're not, as electricians, we're not manufacturers, we're not equipment standard specialists, so we don't really know. So we've got to trust the manufacturer that what they say that piece of equipment can do, because under fault conditions, if the pen was to get broken or get severed or whatever happened, we're hoping that that will recognize that's happened and disconnect. Because if it doesn't, potentially, and all these things would have to align, you'd have to be touching the car probably with nothing on your feet and wet hands and all the rest of it. That, you know, that voltage that could come across your heart, through your body, through your feet, might kill you. And if it does, in a court of law, you've got to try and explain, or, you know, in accordance with electricity at work regulations, what you've done is in accordance with the minimum, which is 7671. And if you haven't, and if it's not your fault, it's the manufacturer, because you've trusted that their equipment will do what it says it will do, and it hasn't, then it's going to be up to them to explain to the judge why Mrs. Smith is dead, etc. It's so, yeah, you know, there's a need for guidance, and if, you know, if they're put it together, then that's great. But it is guidance. So, you know, I haven't looked at it, but I do like the fact that it's out for public comment, because you can comment, and all the leading organisations do, and we certainly will when we've got time to have a look at it. But, you know, somebody needs to do something, don't they? And give the everyday installer, designer, spark some guidance. So yeah,
I think my final comment on those would be, because I agree with everything you've said, Rich, but for the apprentices, understanding what we mean when we say it's statutory and non-statutory, because
yeah,
I hear this get explained wrong a lot. You know, you always get that exam question, don't you? What one's a
always.
statutory and what one's a non-statutory, but it's never really
Every time.
understood as to what it means. And like, although we're sitting here saying these codes of practices and 7671 are not statutory documents, and they're not, they are not legal documents, but what you will find in the appendices of the regs and all the other parts is they will have elements that say to you, by complying with these guidance documents and these codes of practice, it makes sure that you are complying with the electricity at work regulations. So don't not read these things, don't excuse them, because they will be used against you. Even though you're being prosecuted under the electricity at work regs, they will use the regulations, they will use these codes of practices to show you the finite detail of how you didn't comply. So
well, that's
yes, they're non-statutory, but they are used in a statutory manner, so you need to treat them in that case, would be my advice to apprentices.
They're produced to help us comply with the law. That's what they're for, aren't they? Like all the approved documents, Part A, B, C, F, P, etc., help us to comply with the legislation, which is the building regulations, isn't it? You know, that's what they're for. They're there to help us to comply with the law. You know, they are guidance notes and documents and everything else to help us to do that. Because if you was to try and decipher the actual legislation, which has been written by, you know, solicitors and you know, all the rest of it, you'd be like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what I'm doing here. So, you know, the whole point of it is to give us guidance on how to, and if you follow that generally, you're always going to comply, as you quite rightly say, with the law, aren't you? Whereas if you ignore them, then you ain't got a leg to stand on, you know. So
Totally. And the IET have some super brains in that organisation. You've got Mark Coles, Peter Kenyon, Michael Peace, and most recently
Steve
Craig
Devine.
O'Neill. Yeah,
it's great. Steve.
Yeah,
I was talking to Steve. Yeah, Stephen's the chairman of our EISF working group, the Electrical Installation Safety Working Group. I had a good chat with him this week, but very knowledgeable, all of them. They're engineers, you know, they're electricians, but engineers as well. You know, when we talk about engineering judgment, it's great because they're all, as you quite rightly say, Mark, they're really approachable, really nice people, you know, and to have that relationship with them is brilliant.
It's good to see them popping their heads above the parapet with a standard
like
like that as well.
Because it's, you know, to me, before I joined electrical safety first and all the rest of it, JPEL and all the subcommittees and the whole of 7671, it's like a dark black magic, isn't it? That just happens, and then we all complain that they've changed the regs, and now we've got to put these bloody AFDDs in, especially Craig, that cost £100 each. Do we need them? What's the reasoning behind it? Why? You know, it's so. But now I've got a better understanding of what goes on behind the scenes, and it's nice to be able to then explain why that is, as opposed to It's just because they want to make more money because you've got to do another course, buy another book, etc. It's not about that. And I've thought that in the past. Of course I have. You know, if you run your own business, you've got to send all your lads on that course, and you've got to take them out of work. It's a lot of cash. It's a lot of money, you know. But there is reasons behind it. So, you know, more needs to be done on educating people behind why things are done because they're done and the reasons for it. But, you know, great conversations. But again, the podcast will turn into like 3-hour conversations because
I was going to say on that note, we will close this one down. I think you've taken enough of both of your 2 time tonight as it is already. So thank you very much for coming on again. We're going to try and get some more of the guest ones lined up. There is still the water sparky one I've been on about for ages, but he keeps traveling off doing work, and we've had other bits and pieces coming up. So he's coming on. He's going to do it. And hopefully some other people as well. And we'll maybe delve into a bit more reg space stuff or something. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, let's try and get one of the IT engineers on. You know, I'm sure that Stephen would come, or Michael. You know, there won't be a problem there. I think we need to do more. And then for the apprentices and learners out there, they can get a better understanding of how we all join together and aim to, ultimately, we're trying to make things better, aren't we? So I think that's a great idea.
Love to. Anything you want to add, Craig, before we finish this one, mate?
No, I think it's been an enjoyable chat. Nice to catch up with you gents, and I'm sure we'll be doing the same time next week, perhaps, and then be blasting through again.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I would ask is if people have got any topics from, you know, they've all finished their first term in college now. Where are the gaps? Where are you struggling? What series do you want to see us do next? What sort of things do you want us to answer? Give us some topics that we can go away and come back and try and use or use to help you with for your next term of college.
Good shout. And on that note, we'll end that one there. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. If you've got any comments or suggestions, as Craig's just said, drop them in below. And until the next time, we'll see you then.
See you soon.
Bye.